There's a moment in every woman's life when she wonders, was I too much for him? Too deep, too intense, too emotional? Not because she was told so, but because the man she loved pulled away without warning. He looked at her like she was everything, and then vanished like she was nothing. And that contrast, it breaks something inside. Not just the heart, but the trust in her own value. But what if the problem was never that you were too much? What if the truth is this? He simply wasn't brave enough to love someone like you. Carl Jung once said that the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely, and loving you would have required him to do just that. Because you didn't love the version of him that everyone accepted. You didn't fall for the mask. You fell for the man beneath it. The raw, unfiltered, flawed, brilliant, insecure soul he kept hidden even from himself. You saw him, not the provider, the achiever, the father, the husband, the man in control. You saw the boy who still carried wounds. You saw the dreamer he abandoned. You saw the fear in his silence and the longing in his touch. And for a moment, he felt like he could be that man with you. Unedited, unpolished, real. But real is terrifying. He didn't leave because you were wrong for him. He left because being with you meant he would have to confront everything he avoided in himself. He would have to feel again, speak again, choose again, risk again. And most men don't have the courage to break their own narrative, especially when they've built their entire life around control and emotional distance. You weren't a mistake. You were a mirror, a soft, fierce, undeniable mirror. And when he looked into you, he saw everything he could become and everything he'd have to let go of to get there. That's why he ran. Not because you were too emotional, but because you awakened emotion in him. Not because you were needy, but because you needed honesty. Not because you expected too much, but because you expected truth. And he was used to people who expected him to perform, not to feel. So he chose the easy road. The road that required less of him. The one where he could stay numb and praised for it. He didn't have to become a better man there. He just had to stay consistent, predictable, silent. But deep down he knew. He knew what you were, what you gave, what you carried, what you triggered. And that's why his silence is so loud now. That's why he watches you from a distance but doesn't speak. That's why he finds reasons to check in, to linger in your space without saying what he truly feels. Because part of him is still trying to be brave. He just hasn't reached the part of himself that knows how to act on it. And you're left with the wreckage of what could have been. You doubt yourself. You question your worth. You wonder if maybe you imagined the whole thing. But the energy between two people doesn't lie. And your intuition doesn't need a confirmation text to be valid. He felt it. You know, he did. You saw it in his eyes, in the way he lingered, in the way he hesitated before leaving, in the way he paused like he was about to say something important and then didn't. Those moments weren't empty. They were evidence of the internal war he couldn't win. Because here's the truth. Most men don't fear losing a woman. They fear facing the version of themselves they'd have to become to keep her. You didn't scare him with your needs. You scared him with your presence, with your depth, with the fact that you didn't want a version of him. You wanted him fully, and he had never offered that to anyone before. That's why this hurts so much, because what you lost wasn't just a man. You lost the future you saw in his eyes. You lost the version of yourself that bloomed in his presence. You lost the voice that only came alive when you felt truly understood. But here's what you need to remember. He didn't leave because you were wrong. He left because you were right. And being with someone who is right for you demands a kind of bravery that not everyone possesses. So stop trying to make sense of it through self-blame. Stop rewriting the past in your head to make it more digestible. Stop shrinking yourself so the ending hurts less. You were never a mistake. You were the lesson he wasn't ready to learn. The truth he wasn't ready to accept. The love he wasn't prepared to receive. And the reflection he wasn't strong enough to face. You were, and still are, a whole universe. Asterisk, and the hardest part, you still miss him, not because he treated you well, not because he stayed, but because, for a brief moment, you felt alive. In his presence you felt seen, you felt chosen, even if only in silence. That kind of emotional intimacy doesn't fade with time. It lingers, it echoes in quiet moments, when the world is still, and your heart remembers what it felt like to be recognized. It's not about wanting him back, it's about wanting that feeling back. The one where your soul felt touched. The one where your words weren't filtered. The one where your eyes didn't have to hide your truth. That version of youth, a woman who opened up, who trusted, who believed she deserves to live. She deserves to be loved fully, not punished for being brave. Because that's what love is, a risk. You risked being vulnerable. You risked being misunderstood. You risked opening a door that might never be walked through. But that risk was not weakness. That risk was your power. And even if he couldn't meet you there, you did something most people never do. You loved without a mask. You showed up as your whole self. You didn't perform. You didn't manipulate. You didn't pretend. You were real, and that's rare. That's sacred. You didn't lose because he didn't stay. You won because you didn't abandon yourself in the process. So let him go, not because he never mattered, but because he wasn't ready. Let him go with grace, not bitterness. Because the woman who becomes her own closure no longer waits for someone else to give her peace. You were never too much. You were never too intense. You were never wrong for loving deeply. You were just ahead of him in your emotional evolution. And now, it's time to walk forward, not with regret, but with reverence for the woman you became through it all. Because the woman who wasn't chosen is still the woman who changed everything. And one day, someone brave enough will recognize that. If you've ever struggled to release someone who made you feel seen, but never stayed, the Jung Method can help you heal what logic can't explain. It guides you through emotional patterns, shadow work, and self-integration. The link is pinned in the first comment. Now let's talk about what happens after he walks away. At first, you don't believe it, not really, because something in you still feels the pull, the connection, the unspoken promise, and your mind tells you, if it felt that real, it can't just disappear. So you wait, quietly, not always with intention. Sometimes it's just a small pause in your chest when your phone lights up, a flicker of hope when a message arrives. But it's never him, and little by little, you start to realize that the connection didn't disappear. It just became a memory you carry alone. That's the ache that lingers, not the loss of the man, but the loss of the possibility, the future you saw, the version of yourself that bloomed in the space between his silence and your longing. You try to reason with it. You try to let go. But the heart doesn't respond to logic. It responds to meaning. And to you, it meant something. But here's the truth. No one tells you. Just because he couldn't meet you in your depths doesn't mean the connection was imagined. Some people really do feel something powerful and still walk away. Not because they didn't feel it, but because they couldn't hold it. You were not too heavy. He just had shallow hands. And the truth is, not everyone is ready for a woman who sees clearly, who doesn't settle for fragments, who calls forth the truth. You weren't difficult. You were whole. And he had only ever known how to love in pieces. That's why he chose comfort, because comfort doesn't ask questions. It doesn't push. It doesn't reveal. Comfort is quiet, but we were loud in all the right ways. Your presence disrupted his silence. Your love challenged his detachment, and your vulnerability exposed his fear. That's why he left, and now you're here, not waiting, not begging, but grieving, because grief is not just about what dies, it's about what could have lived. You grieve the way he looked at you when he thought you weren't watching. You grieve the words he never said, the hands he never reached out with, the apology that never came. You grieve the version of him that showed up in your dreams, but never in your life. And in that grief, you find clarity. You see that your worth was never dependent on his choice. You were not waiting to be chosen. You were waiting to be met. And there's a difference. Because the woman who knows her depth doesn't need validation. She needs presence. And he couldn't give you that dot. So now it's your turn to rise. Not by forgetting him, but by remembering yourself. The woman you were before he came along. The woman who still existed after he left. The woman who carries softness and fire in the same breath. The woman who doesn't close off just because someone couldn't open up. You are not defined by his absence. You are defined by your presence. And the next time you feel that ache in your chest, remember this: it wasn't love if it required you to become invisible. It wasn't love if it made you question your own reflection. It wasn't love if you had to carry the entire connection alone. Real love doesn't confuse, it awakens. And yes, sometimes it starts with confusion, with intensity, with uncertainty, but eventually it becomes clear. It aligns, it chooses, it stays. You were never asking for too much. You were asking for what's real, and only someone brave can offer that. So let this be your turning point, not into bitterness, but into truth, into softness without shame, into depth without apology. Because the woman who loves like you is rare, not because she gives everything, but because she gives herself fully. without disguise, without withholding, without strategy, and one day, someone will stand in front of you not with fear, not with hesitation, but with reverence. He won't just want to hold your hand, he'll want to hold your soul. He won't pull away when it gets deep. He'll dive in with you. He won't ask you to shrink. He'll expand to meet you. He won't see you as a detour. He'll see you as home, because when a man is finally brave enough, he'll know that a woman like you is not a mistake. She's the reward that life gives only to those who are ready. Until then, keep walking with your head high. Keep loving with your heart open. Keep speaking your truth, even when it shakes your voice, because the woman who refuses to abandon herself becomes unforgettable. And that's exactly who you are now. Asterisk, even now. Somewhere inside you, there's still a quiet voice asking, but what if? What if he wakes up one day and realizes what he lost? What if he still thinks about you? What if he comes back? And maybe he will. Maybe one day he'll feel the emptiness in his life too loud to ignore. Maybe the silence he chose will become unbearable. Maybe the comfort he once clung to will start to feel like a prison. And in that moment of clarity, he might think of you, of your eyes, your voice, the way you never asked him to be anything but honest, the way you didn't try to fix him, just held space for him to be whole. But here's what you need to understand. By the time he comes back, you may not be standing in the same place. You will have grown. You will have healed the parts of you that waited for closure. You will have learned to give yourself the love you once begged him for. You will have redefined what it means to be chosen, not by someone else, but by yourself. Because healing is not forgetting. Healing is remembering without losing yourself. And you will remember. You'll remember that your love wasn't a weakness. It was an offering. You didn't fall apart because he left. You cracked open. And from that opening came your light. There will still be days when the memory stings, when a smell, a sound, a passing glance makes the past feel too close. But those days will become fewer, softer, lighter, because you're no longer carrying his silence as a reflection of your worth. You'll stop blaming yourself for not being easier to love. You were never meant to be easy. You were meant to be real, to be deep, to be undeniable. And one day, you'll look in the mirror and finally see her, the woman who stayed, the woman who loved bravely, the woman who wasn't afraid to feel, to hope, to try. You'll see her clearly, not through his absence, but through your own becoming. And in that moment, you'll understand something powerful. He didn't break you, he revealed you. And for that, you won't hate him. You'll thank him, because without the ache of his cowardice, you might have never met your own strength. You are not the one who was left behind. You are the one who rose.